Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sunday's Other Scriptures for July 20th. We have a series of readings that have a common thread that has to do with, at least between the Old Testament and the Gospel, with hospitality. But I think all of them have to do with relationship, specifically our relationship with God. So, our Old Testament reading is a mysterious reading in which three guys show up at Abraham's place, and he has a very high standard of hospitality, but you get the sense that he is aware of something special about these guys because he rushes around. It's the middle of the day. He has them, sit he bows low to the ground, and he has them sit there, and he has their feet washed, and has them rest in the shade of a tree. And he runs out and has one of his best animals slaughtered and some fresh bread baked. Prepares really this nice meal for them, and stands like he's their servant while they're eating. And of course, at the beginning of this verse, we're clued in that the Lord appeared to Abraham, but I think that he kind of gradually becomes aware of the Lord's presence. This is something that happens in the scriptures, that sometimes people don't recognize the Lord right away. You might remember when Jesus rose from the dead that it wasn't until he broke the bread that the disciples he met on the road to Emmaus recognized that it was actually him. And so Abraham recognizes eventually, I think, that these are from the Lord. And this one of them says, well, I'm coming back in a year, and by that time, Sarah, your wife, will have a child. And Sarah laughs because she's elderly. She's like, 90 years old, and Abraham's 100. The author of Hebrews says they were as good as dead, and and yet this was the promise of God. And she laughs because it seems unlikely, but there's also delight when it occurs. In fact, this child would be named Isaac, which means laughter, because there was a terrible stigma over childlessness in the ancient world, and it had to do with the fact that everything you worked for would be inherited by someone else. In the case of Abraham and Sarah, it would be their head servant, and people thought it was a curse from God. For most people, it meant that there was no one to take care of you in your old age. Now, Abraham and Sarah were wealthy enough, but still there was this stigma that they must have done something terrible, that God didn't give them children. And of course, this is the promise in the midst of this incredible hospitality, the promise that that God has heard their plea, that it's really about the relationship between them. Our psalm for the day is Psalm 27. And this psalm, 7 through 14, is of David, and it's about seeking the Lord's face. He asks the Lord to seek his face, and my heart says of you, seek his face. This is what I want, your face I'm going to seek. Well, what does that mean? Well, to seek someone's face is to get their attention, and to know their disposition towards you. This is why it's astonishing that the Lord appeared face to face with Abraham. And David desires that. He doesn't want the Lord to hide his face. Don't turn away from your servant in your anger. You've been my helper. I rely on you. I need you. Teach me your way. Make my path straight. I was hiking not long ago in North Carolina with the grandkids, and it was a very winding path. And it, I don't think we quite appreciate with our superhighways the value of a straight path, where you go neither from one side to another, but it takes you to your destination. And this is what we desire of God, is that he takes us straight to the good stuff, and that we not be sidetracked one way or another. And so the reason that David asked for this, and that we ask for this, is not because we're so good, but because of God's mercy, and because we want to show to those who are against us that the Lord is with us. And he ends this particular passage with confidence. I am confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So the counsel at the end is wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Now, our epistle reading for the day is part of a Lectio Continuo, a continuous reading through Colossians. So it picks up where we left last week, which means it doesn't necessarily have a strong connection to the other readings. But Paul is writing to specifically, I think, the Gentiles here, saying, once you were alienated from God, and you were enemies because of your evil behavior, but now he's reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, right? We are in God's sight. His face is on us, even when we don't see his face. And this is the good news, which Paul has become an apostle, a servant of. And he says, now I rejoice in what I'm suffering for you. He's not rejoicing because he's suffering. He's rejoicing in the fact that the suffering serves a purpose. He says, I fill up in my flesh what is lacking with regard to Christ's affliction. When you say, well, Christ's affliction was complete for us, right? Yes, but in order to spread this good news throughout the world, it's going to take suffering because this world is against God, and this world is, the ruler of this world is opposed to the spread of the gospel. So we shouldn't expect that that spreading the good news of Jesus is easy. Paul certainly suffered for it, but he was glad to suffer for it in the sense that he knew it was accomplishing God's purpose. So he goes on and talks about this as a mystery, that Christ came for the Gentiles, the non-Jewish people. This was not what he was taught when he was growing up or when he was a rabbi under Gamaliel. But nonetheless, this is the case, that Christ came for all people, including Gentiles like us. And then we get to our gospel reading, which will be the basis of the sermon. It's a short reading about Jesus coming to a village where a woman named Martha opens up her home. This is the beginning of a friendship between Jesus and Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus. And yet Martha is so concerned about entertaining this famous rabbi. She's rushing around while Mary sits at Jesus' feet. Now, this is striking because to sit at one's feet is to be a disciple of that person, is to listen to them. And this was not the normal place for women. They were expected by the culture of their day to prepare a meal, to provide that hospitality. Again, it's the reverse of Abraham, who as the master of the house stood by and provided hospitality for the Lord. And Martha's rushing around, and yet Mary sits at the feet of Jesus. And Martha is upset about this. And she says, Lord, don't you care that my sister's just sitting there doing nothing while I'm doing all this work? And Jesus famously says, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, you type A personality, you. But only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. And the meaning is crystal clear, and yet we struggle. Even in our modern day of conveniences, of microwaves and automobiles, we struggle to set aside what's less important and focus on a relationship with Jesus. But that's what I'm going to be talking about. And that's a thread really that runs, I think, through all of our readings. So I hope that gives you food for thought and that you have a great discussion. The Lord bless your conversation.